Just when I thought I could make a video outside, it begins to rain again. Auckland City. I haven't lived in Auckland City since 1995, so last century. So I've forgotten how much it rains up here over winter. I was up here last year for some part of the spring, and that was interesting. There's a bit of rain up here, and I was up here, but it was also really windy as well, which sort of reminds me of Wellington. But I've just been blown away by how much it rains up here over the winter. It's very wet, and I forgot what that's like. Wellington, actually, living in for 20 years in Wellington, it comes and goes, but up here it's just constant. So my friend, one of my friends yesterday, Luke Evans, was talking about the nature of natural law, which is the Creator's law, which becomes common law, the law of the land, de jure in law, and how consent is a big part of the spiritual war that is taking place below, and not below isn't the right way of saying this, but in alignment with the five senses, because it's a Russian doll. In my perception, it's a Russian doll kind of event, of a Russian doll form of control, but also a Russian doll level of concentric rings from the center, from the smallest doll outwards towards how the war is being fought. I feel as though this war is being fought, and is always fought throughout all the cycles, all the ascending yuga cycles and the descending yuga cycles. If you look at the Vedic sciences or the Greek ages of man, there's a force at work that wants to be in control during the ascending cycles, which doesn't have the ability to remain in control, which is a more dominating, harvesting, lack of light, a lack of compassion, expansion of consciousness. You might call it evil, and that force doesn't have the energy available to it to be able to come into a place of power when the light and from the sun, our central sun, is so powerful, which is a portal for energy coming from the middle of our galaxy, the black hole in the middle, from the central sun in the middle of our galaxy. In my perception, and I'm not alone in this, and that energy coming from that central sun to our sun, the light that comes in regards to the codings, which our bodies, as we become less dense through the ages, through the ascending yuga cycle, as we become less dense, as we become, and the work of Bebe Dev Mishra once again talks about the nature of how the human form gets taller, more robust, lives longer during the ascending yuga cycles towards the Satya, the golden age. And the historical record is all there for people to look at in regards to the Vedic texts, the Vedic sciences, to look at that and look at the ages of man. In the Greek ages of man, the Trojan War, Achilles was a giant, was huge, and was also, if you look at the Iliad, Achilles was a larger than life character, almost a giant, almost a giant of a man, and also a paragon of a man and a warrior, an extremely powerful warrior. And his mother was a god. So his father was a god. I haven't read the Iliad for a long time. Anyway, semi-divine. So in regards to the consent thing that my friend was talking about yesterday, it kind of piqued my interest around the nature of the natural cycles and what we're going through at the moment, but also it piqued my interest around the whole idea that due to the nature of consent, the forces that want to bring in a transhumanist agenda on this planet and through this cycle to create a technological Kali Yuga can only do so in the natural law sense. They can't bring in that cycle of transhumanist agenda unless there's a tacit acquiescence, which is a silent acquiescence, a consent of the populace of our planet, right? Some people like myself have since 2020 did not, and I've been in the place where I haven't consented for a long time to the agenda of what's been played out. And I won't consent, and I'm not going to consent to anything that's in this, that comes out of this avenue of the control system. I'm not interested. No consent, no contract, no joinder, so to speak, in the natural, in the commerce world, right? But it goes much, much deeper than that in regards to the consent thing. And this isn't a burner thing in regards to consent. It's not about consent on dance floors. It's not about consent in conscious dances, which is also a big part of where this consent ripple comes out of. But if you look at it at the most deeply fundamental spiritual level, the consent is this. Do we, through our silent acquiescence, through our tacit acquiescence, do we consent to a transhumanist agenda being played upon us through geoengineering, chemtrails, through ubiquitous spraying of smart dust for the last 30, 40 years in our atmosphere, in our stratosphere? Do we consent to having our bodies infiltrated with the smart dust? Do we consent to mRNA injectable technologies which change our DNA, and therefore our ability to connect to the light codes coming from the sun, from our sun, that help us to bring us into a place of, I won't say evolution, but a place of expansion of consciousness and our bodies changing and shifting due to the nature of our DNA taking in these codes. And by that, when that happens, taking in these codes in, it reformats our beings and able to, for our biology, our frequency band, which we call a body, to be able to attune and align with that frequency and be in the life stream of the yuga cycle. Or do we consent through tacit acquiescence to inhaling, to breathing, to eating food, drinking water, every day being exposed to this technology, because it's ubiquitous now, it's throughout the entire world. It's being carried through the jet stream, air flows, it's in the water, it's in the food, it's in the soil, it's everywhere. I saw an article just recently of animals in the United States, some deer and some rabbits, with these huge pustulate sores all over them. And, you know, people, the environmentalists and the scientists who are looking at this have got no idea what's going on here with this. Why these animals have these huge pustulate sores? Is it a form of disease that they're carrying in their bodies? The jury's out. They don't really know until they take an animal, shoot an animal, or one of the animals dies, and they study it. And then, of course, when they study it, what do they find? What will they tell us? And what won't they tell us? You know. So the question then becomes for me: is that because? And I read an article by Dr. Joseph P. Farrell on his website, The Gears of Death Star, and he questioned the nature of does this have anything to do with Morgellons disease, which is for people who suffer from this disease, kind of like wiry, worm-like structures underneath their skin, which seem to have an intelligence. And you know, he was talking about the nature of nanoparticulates coming down from these geoengineering planes, people breathing them in, getting them on their skin, getting them in the food, getting them in the water. And are these animals just showing us what's going on with our own bodies, right? If we are breathing these particulates in, if we're eating food, drinking water, these particulates in the water and in our food, because it's ubiquitous. Let's be honest. This technology is now ubiquitous. And, you know, when Ray Kurzweil talks about smart dust, he's not talking about it in a future timeline. He's talking about right now, you know, right now. So that smart dust could be, potentially, if you look at the work of Ilana Freeland. Ilana Freeland has written some incredible books, one of them being Under an Ionized Sky, about the whole idea of full spectrum dominance, which is a military term, right? Which is having an internet of bodies, an internet of things, all talking to each other, and with AI talking to the bodies and the things through the skull to mind. Sorry, the technology from technology to skull. Technology which is wireless, and you can have this communication. And if your DNA is an antennae, and it can pick up on frequencies, and it can pick up on frequencies and also ruminations from this technology. Ruminations isn't the right word, but can pick up on transference from this technology, and it can have a coherence with this technology. Why couldn't they beam into your body, in your DNA or in your mind, thoughts, emotions, to program you to actually become robotic in some sense, to control your thoughts and your emotions, your biochemical, your hormonal responses, due to the nature of what you're thinking alone, right? Because these processes happen when you have when you begin to think about something, your body goes into, if it's a traumatic experience, your body will begin to produce cortisol. If it's a fight or flight experience, a memory of, because your subconscious doesn't know about this experience being in the past or in the future, it just can think, in that moment, it believes you're actually having the experience. So your body, if you're thinking about an experience that was traumatic for you, your subconscious immediately gets your biochemical responses happening. And what happens often is that you have a cortisol response or an adrenal response. Your fight or flight gets activated, and your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous systems go into fucking, so all these questions that I have around the nature of consent, around, do we consent? Do we every day? Do we get up in the morning and we go to bed at night time? Because it goes both ways. In the dream state, the lower fourth dimension, and beyond and into infinity. Of course, when you get to infinity, outside of the simulation, if you believe in that idea that we're living in a simulation, if you get beyond the frequency band we call existence, and this reality, if you get beyond that, if you leave with your dream body out of this realm, I don't think there's a necessity to have this, potentially have this idea of consent. I don't know, but within the realm itself we're in right now, due to the nature of the war that's going on, the spiritual war that's going on a level that's far beyond the five senses, there has to be a level of consent. And most people will tacitly, silently acquiesce to the agenda because they're distracted by everything in their lives, jobs, family, raising their family, doing their best to raise their family the best possible way they can, their friends, their lives, their entertainment, the misdirection of energy towards things that aren't really necessary, deserve our energy, politics being one of them, giving our power away to parasites, the parasite class, to corporations, living in the public, not living in the private. That's just an example. How we're going to eat, what we're going to do with our lives, how we're going to function in regards to careers, how we're going to survive in this public system. All this shit basically diverts our attention away from one simple act, which could be in the morning and in the evening. In the morning, getting up and saying something like what I would say: I do not consent for my body, spirit, body, mind, to have any transhumanist technology or any form of control system, public parasite class energy pervading my spirit, body, mind. Do not consent. No consent, no contract, no joinder, and leave it there. When I go to bed at night time, I could say I do not consent to let any energies within the simulation contracting with me in any way, spirit, body, mind, while I'm sleeping, or dream body. I do not consent to any forces within the simulation attempting to bring me into contract or into connection. No consent, no contract, no joinder. I do not consent to any entities in the lower fourth dimension, astral level, to prey on my dream body while I'm sleeping. Spirit, body, mind, astral body. These are just things I'm looking at in regards to the questions I'm asking about the nature of consent, and see how this plays out for me when I talk about this kind of stuff. And I'm actually doing it, because I'm actually going through the process of doing this. I'm sharing what I'm going to be doing, have been doing the last 2 days in regards to saying I don't consent to having this experience. I had a blood test, some blood work done, and I had some intravenous vitamin C because the nature of my blood pressure was quite high. And I knew that my blood, I could feel it. My blood was sluggish. My blood flow was sluggish, and therefore, and also I could feel my heartbeat and my pulse was strong. And so I was told about 2.5 weeks ago I had hypertension stage 1, and I was kind of confused. I was like, well, how could that be? Because I eat 1 meal a day, which is very nutritious. I drink a lot of liquid. Have had some stressful situations the last 5 months, which could have elevated my blood pressure and also taken my parasympathetic nervous system and my sympathetic nervous system into a fight or flight dip and groove for a while due to the fact that I could be in this place where I'm in this elevated state of response at that level, and even though I'm not aware of it consciously, it could still be happening subconsciously. My body, my subconscious still could be in this place, or it could be a programming that I'm actually in within the Auckland simulation beneath this infrastructure, this technological infrastructure that's in place here, where all Aucklanders living in this under this technological bubble could be exposed to this technology and could be actually producing lots of cortisol and adrenaline in their bodies, and their nervous systems could be absolutely fried because of it, and they don't even know it. And therefore that could be a situation, or it could be the fact that as I'm getting older within this frequency band we call a body, my arteries have got plaque in them. It could be I might don't have enough metabolism in my body. Enough magnesium in my body to metabolize calcium, which is flowing through my arteries, which is sticking to my artery walls. But I had the blood work done, and my blood work under a microscope, my blood was clotting and was clumping like strawberry jam. It was very thick, which means the platelets in my blood were quite high, right? So I right away thought, is there a situation where you can't tell under an ordinary microscope, where I had tech in my body from living in Wellington region for 20 years, where they absolutely hammer from Taranaki down to Wellington, geoengineer every day they possibly can. So many chemtrails, hundreds of them, thousands a year, and they fly over Wellington City. So was I breathing in tech, come to Auckland, people all around me have had this tech put into their bodies through injections. And I'm breathing it in by being around them as well. Is this tech in my body feeding off my blood cells, therefore by feeding off my blood cells, by taking the hemoglobin and the energy out of my ATP out of my cells, out of the mitochondria, this is the tech, the nanotech, is it taking it out of my blood cells and therefore feeding itself in order to be able to self-replicate, but killing my body at the same time, right? So I thought, I'll do the intravenous vitamin C first and see how I feel afterwards. I did that, and I felt like $1 million afterwards. My blood felt cleansed after having that intravenous vitamin C. I felt lighter. I had more energy. It came back. And my levels of ATP, obviously due to my mitochondrial reproduction, felt way stronger. And my blood felt cleaner because of it. So I'm going to go back again in a month's time and have another session in a month to see what happens there. But once again, it comes down to that for me. The consent issue, the consent paradigm. What do I consent to every day? How do I spend my time? Am I so caught up in the machinations of living that I forget to say that I do not consent to this system, to this parasite class's overlay within existence, within infinity? I don't consent to any of it at all. And get into a place where I understand the nature of how I use my words to cast my spells around consent. It's massive. So I'm questioning, and I've got no answers here, but my experience is and for me, is to look at the situation and go, I need to look at this position I have right now, look at my position right now and say, what do I consent to in my life? And make it quite clear through statements, verbally, I don't consent to this, and make a broad but clear message to the unified field what I do not consent to experience in my existence within this realm and beyond. So thank you, Luke Evans, for planting that seed for me and allowing me to make these changes to my life, and to remember that this is really important in regards to how we conduct ourselves. What do you consent to in your life? How do you contract with life? And what do you join to in life, in your experience? Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Mā te ua. I'll see you again soon.